The Cat by the River. For as long as anyone could remember, the small orange cat had sat by the riverbank. No matter the weather, rain, wind, or shine, the cat remained in that same spot, staring out over the water as if waiting for something. Everyone in the small town knew about the cat. They called her Ember for the way her fur seemed to glow under the morning sun. Many had tried to coax her away from the river with food or soft beds, but she always returned. One chilly autumn morning, Officer Luke Reynolds was patrolling the riverside trail when he noticed Ember huddled under a bush, shivering. The sight tugged at his heart. He knelt down, speaking softly. "Hey there, little one. Are you all right?" Ember blinked at him with tired eyes. Luke reached out slowly, expecting her to run, but to his surprise, she stayed still. Gently, he wrapped her in his coat and carried her to his patrol car. As he drove to the local shelter, Ember made a soft sound, a small, mournful meow that broke his heart. It was as though she wasn't just cold, she was grieving. The shelter's vet, Dr. Grace Thompson, met Luke at the door. "She's malnourished, but nothing that some care and love can't fix," Grace assured him. "But I think she's waiting for something. Or someone." Luke felt a pang of sadness as he watched Ember curl up in the soft blanket. "She's been by the river for years. Do you think she lost someone?" Grace nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe. Animals can grieve just like us." Luke couldn't shake the feeling that Ember's story was deeper than anyone realized. That night, he sat at his kitchen table, scrolling through old town records and articles. His search led him to a story from 6 years earlier, one he vaguely remembered. A boy named Ethan, no older than 10, had fallen into the river while playing near the bank. Despite a frantic search, his body was never found. Ethan had lived near the river with his mother and his orange kitten. Luke felt the breath catch in his throat. "Ember, you were his, weren't you?" The pieces fit. The kitten had grown into the loyal cat who never left the river's edge. Ember hadn't abandoned her home. She'd been waiting for Ethan all this time. The next morning, Luke returned to the shelter and found Ember perched by the window, watching the world outside. "Hey, Ember," he said softly. "I think I know who you've been waiting for." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an old photo he'd found online. A picture of young Ethan holding a tiny orange kitten, both of them beaming with joy. Ember's eyes seemed to brighten as she looked at the photo. Luke knelt beside her. "He's not coming back, but that doesn't mean you can't be loved again." For the first time, Ember brushed her small head against Luke's hand. He smiled, a warmth spreading in his chest. Luke didn't take Ember back to the shelter. Instead, he brought her home. He set up a soft bed by the fireplace, but she preferred to sit by the window, gazing outside. Luke understood. He'd lost someone once, too. As the weeks passed, Ember grew stronger. She followed Luke everywhere and began to trust again. Luke, too, felt his heart begin to heal in her quiet company. One sunny afternoon, Luke walked Ember down to the river. The water shimmered in the light, and Ember sat beside him, her tail flicking gently. Luke placed a small bouquet of wildflowers at the edge of the riverbank. "For Ethan," he whispered. Ember let out a soft, contented purr. It felt as though she was saying goodbye, not to forget, but to finally find peace. When they returned home that day, Ember no longer sat by the window waiting. Instead, she curled up beside Luke, her purrs steady and strong. Luke smiled, knowing they'd both found something precious, a second chance at love and home.